Why is it that every time conflict breaks out in the Middle East, global oil prices almost always surge? This question comes up again and again whenever geopolitical tensions rise in the region. Even though these conflicts occur far from most oil-consuming countries, their impact can be felt almost immediately across the world. In a very short time, developments in the Middle East can shake global energy markets and push oil prices sharply higher. One of the main reasons is that a large portion of Middle Eastern oil must pass through a highly critical shipping route in the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz. According to the International Energy Agency, around 20 million barrels of oil pass through this strait every single day, accounting for nearly 1/5 of global oil consumption. So in this video, we'll explore why the Middle East holds so much of the world's oil, and how conflicts in the region can shake oil prices and the global economy. Stay with us. When we talk about global oil, one thing that often stands out is how a large portion of it is concentrated in a single region. The Middle East makes up only a small part of the world's land area, yet it holds a massive share of known oil reserves. Data from the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries shows that countries in the Middle East hold more than 40% of the world's oil reserves. Several countries in the region are also among the world's top producers, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. According to one theory, the reason for this goes back to Earth's ancient history. Millions of years ago, much of what is now desert in the Middle East was actually covered by shallow seas. These waters were filled with marine life such as plankton and microscopic organisms. When these organisms died, their remains sank to the seabed and mixed with layers of mud and sand. Over a very long period, this process repeated again and again. Thick layers of sediment eventually buried this organic material deep beneath the Earth's surface. With increasing pressure and temperature over time, the material slowly transformed into oil and natural gas. Another important factor is how this oil accumulated underground. In many parts of the Middle East, the underground rock structures formed large reservoirs capable of storing vast quantities of oil. As oil moved upward from deeper layers, it became trapped in these reservoirs, forming massive oil fields. This is why some of the largest oil fields in the world are located in this region. One of the most famous examples is the Ghawar oil field in Saudi Arabia, widely considered the largest conventional oil field ever discovered. At its peak, it was capable of producing millions of barrels of oil per day. The Middle East's journey to becoming the world's energy hub began earlier than many realize. In 1938, the first commercial oil well was successfully discovered at the Dammam oil field in Saudi Arabia. This discovery paved the way for the development of the modern petroleum industry in the country and attracted massive investments from international oil companies. In the decades that followed, large-scale oil discoveries continued across the Persian Gulf. Countries such as Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and the UAE developed their own petroleum industries. As production increased, the Middle East quickly became one of the most important energy centers in the global economy. By the mid-20th century, global dependence on oil was rising rapidly. Industrialized nations such as the United States, European countries, and Japan required a stable energy supply to support economic growth and industrial development. This growing demand made Middle Eastern oil increasingly critical to global markets. In 1960, several major oil-producing countries formed OPEC, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, to coordinate oil production policies and protect their interests in the global market. Beyond its massive oil reserves, another key factor that makes the Middle East so important is its oil transportation routes. Most of the oil produced in the region is not consumed domestically. Instead, it must be shipped to Asia, Europe, and the United States through heavily trafficked sea routes. Among all these routes, the most critical is the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow strait lies between Iran and Oman, connecting the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean. Despite being only about 39 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, it serves as the main Chu-Ku route for oil from the Gulf's largest producers. According to data from the International Energy Agency and the U.S. Energy Information Administration, around 20 to 21 million barrels of oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz every day. This represents nearly 1/5 of global oil consumption. In addition to crude oil, this route is also used to transport liquefied natural gas, particularly from Qatar, one of the world's largest LNG exporters. Every day, dozens of oil tankers move in and out of this strait. Most of the oil from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and the UAE passes through this route before reaching major markets such as China, India, Japan, and Europe. For this reason, energy experts often describe the Strait of Hormuz as one of the most important choke points in global energy trade. If this route is disrupted for an extended period, global oil supply can be quickly affected, as there are no alternative routes capable of replacing such massive volumes in a short time. This is why stability in the Persian Gulf is crucial to the global economy. History has repeatedly shown how disruptions in this region can have a massive impact on global oil markets. One of the clearest examples is the 1973 oil crisis. This crisis began when several Arab countries halted oil exports to Western nations that supported Israel during the Yom Kippur War. As a result, oil supply to Western countries dropped sharply. Global oil prices nearly quadrupled within just a few months. In the United States and parts of Europe, fuel stations ran out of supply, and people had to queue for long hours just to buy petrol. The crisis also triggered inflation and economic slowdown across many industrialized nations. Another major conflict occurred in 1980, when war broke out between Iran and Iraq. The war lasted 8 years, with some battles taking place near key oil-producing areas. Both countries also attacked oil tankers in the Persian Gulf in what later became known as the Tanker War. In 1990, the world once again saw how conflict in the Middle East could disrupt global energy markets when Iraq invaded Kuwait. At the time, Kuwait was one of the world's major oil producers. The invasion triggered the Gulf War, and Kuwait's oil production was almost completely halted for a period of time. Retreating Iraqi forces also set hundreds of oil wells on fire, causing massive damage to Kuwait's oil industry. These events clearly show that conflicts in major oil-producing regions can have a direct impact on global energy markets. To this day, political and security developments in the Middle East are closely monitored, as any tension in the region can disrupt global oil supply. A recent example can be seen in the latest conflict involving Iran this year. When the conflict escalated, shipping through the Strait of Hormuz was almost completely halted following attacks on vessels and rising military tensions in the area. This disruption had an immediate impact on global energy markets. According to the International Energy Agency, the closure of the route was expected to reduce global oil supply by around 8 million barrels per day, making it one of the largest supply disruptions in modern energy market history. The crisis also forced major consuming nations to release oil from their strategic reserves to stabilize the market. In an extraordinary move, IEA member countries agreed to release around 400 million barrels of oil from emergency reserves to ease pressure on global oil prices. This event once again highlights a critical reality. As long as a significant portion of the world's oil depends on narrow routes in the Middle East, any conflict in the region has the potential to trigger major shocks to the global economy.